Natural science. In the world in which we live, the natural sciences have a great impact in society. Lives are interlinked by information and computing technology, creating new ways of doing things. It offers advances in medicine to live longer, and through physics, it gives us a view of our place in the universe. It can't tell the whole story, but through the physical background, it gives us a help to understand it, the who we are, and where we are located in the world. The people who study the natural science are scientists, which study the material world, observing it and making predictions. Their main concern is facts that are independent from human beings. Their knowledge that will produce is value free and discovered by quantitative methods that won't change over time. For that knowledge that they produce to become a shared knowledge, it has to go through a validation process. If it's accepted, it will become a shared knowledge. The three main pillars of the natural science are physics, chemistry, and biology. Physics explores the world of matter and energy in general. Chemistry studies the properties of atoms and its electrons translate into the behavior of substances at the microscopic level. Biology studies how physics and chemical properties of matter are combined to give life. The three of them try to find a balance between theory and observation. Experimental results can be used to support theories that lead to a conclusion about how the world works. The main purpose of the natural science is to know more about the world materials, which is called pure science, and how to use them, applied science. It helps us control the environment with predictions of the future. Exception of seismology and geology, which can't be predicted. Ethics is another very important part of the natural science. It is the one in charge of setting limits to the natural science, limiting the questions experiments that the natural science produce. This happens because they question things that in the past produce a negative impact on the world, such as the nuclear bomb or racial biology. Two ways in which they transmit their knowledge is through the language and metaphors. Language says precise meanings to express precise ideas. It's a relation between cause and effect. That language is logical to transmit statements with a logic structure and particularly clear. These statements can be of causation, action-reaction, or characterization. Some things are equal to other things, or factors affecting or acting on other things. The other part, very important in natural science, is the metaphors. These metaphors are used to make a complex statement understandable, but transmit a bigger picture. It's free of interpretation, intuition, and understanding, which makes it a dangerous instrument. The natural science expresses their knowledge through conventions or classifications. Conventions are agreements made to allow social activities to take place efficiently, gathering data and coming to conclusions, ensuring the scientific knowledge. Through classification, it separates into groups of similar properties the natural world. Its important common features so that it can be understandable. Regarding the experiment, we have the hypothetical deductive method. Before the experiment is performed, a hypothesis is set. The hypothesis is the main part of the experiment. It's a question that needs to be answered, and through the process, that question will be answered with the experiment and its observations. This area deals with language, which states key concepts, sense perception, which are basis of observation and measurement, reason, which is the heart of hypothetic deductive method, testing deductions from theory, giving predictions that can be wrong due to wrong theory. Also imagination, which states possible hypotheses to explain the observational result. Intuition produces plausible hypotheses to test. Also emotion, inspiring individuals to pressure their inquiries. And faith, which is the belief without sufficient evidence. All these are types of ways of knowing, which are the main key link to the T.O.K area or study. The experiments performed wouldn't be possible without methodology and models. Models are constructed to solve a problem using language of maths, and methodology are assumptions underlying the scientific method. Comprehensibility, continuity, uniformity, predictions, and assumptions are all integrate to form the methodology. Comprehensibility are the laws that govern the natural world. Continuity are the laws that operate today and in the future. Uniformity are laws that operate in the laboratories on Earth, in far reaches of the universe. Predictions not possible with laws that change, and assumptions are necessary to give conclusions. History has a great impact in the natural science because concepts are historically situated. Finally, and least of all, theory and paradigms are really linked between them. Theory will become a paradigm with accuracy, consistency, broadness of scope, simplicity, and fruitfulness. For paradigms to exist, the theory has to be challenged. If it's challenged, it will become a revolutionary science. Progress in the natural science is truly revolutionary and cycles never stop.
Today we are with a scientist who studied psychology, and we are going to ask some knowledge questions. The first one is, how does science affect faith when making drastic decisions?
I think that when taking drastic decisions, science is obnubilated and all that is kept is faith.
The second question would be, to what extent is willing to get the natural science with respect to the technology, and that way would affect human in the future?
I believe that actually technology and science are keeping in touch and will be highly interrelated in the future the nearby future.
The third question would be, to which extent do scientists follow the idea of falsificationism, and can it affect their ideas?
I believe that falsificationists can be not always taken into account, as sometimes we can decide things in other ways or prove things in other ways.
Which is the impact of science in the way you think and see the world?
I see the world by regarding science in a whole, but I think that science has a lot to do with art as well.
Fourth question, how does natural science relation itself with technology?
Um, I guess that natural science and technology has been improving a lot in the last few years, mainly because they interrelate, they relate with each other a lot.
Fifth question, how does natural science affect humanity at the time of socializing and communicating?
Okay, communication and social life has been he's very in touch with fans nowadays, and they are and I think that humanity has has been thinking in the last few days scientifically more, in a more scientific way.
Sixth question. How does the classification method help the understanding of scientists?
Classification is a very basic but important way of understanding or the science world between ourselves. We are in the global context. We can understand each other by classification, everything in the same way.
Seventh question. How could you prove a theory without making an experiment to prove it?
Now, in order to prove an experiment in the scientific way, using the scientific method, you need to prove it empirically. That's the only way to prove it in the scientific world.
How does science help you see the reality?
Science allows you to see the real life in almost every way, but I think that science also shows that we are all energy humans, beings, and that life is energy.
Ninth question. How does science affect the life of ordinary people?
I believe that ordinary people live in a world in which they believe or they respond to science only in very specific situations, mainly when health is involved, in which they have to depend on science.
How would we live in a world without science?
I think that living in a world without science would be mainly like living in a world I'll say, like in the 15th century, when everything and everybody recurred to religious institutions in which everything was decided upon God.
Thank you very much for your time.
Very appreciated.